God has called you from a place of victory, not a place of victimhood. Now the Israelites could stay in victim mentality, and sometimes they did. These guys had been slaves for 400 years. If anybody had the right to play the victim card, it was them. But now they're standing at the river, and God says, I'm going to split between you the difference between victim and victory. And you're either going to walk out of victimhood or you're going to walk into victory. And guess whose choice it is? Yours.
That's right. Yeah.
God gave us a river to cross, and He said, which one are you going to be? The victor or the victim? It's your choice. Life is tough. Deal with it. Jesus said life is tough. He said you're going to go through tough things. That means you're going to have to be tougher. But we can't play that this has happened to me and I just can't get up. Listen, these guys could have played the victim card. They wandered the desert for 40 years in circles. Did you know that it was a 12-day trip from where they went to where they should have been? It was a very short trip. They could have made it a lot quicker than that. And they spent 40 years because God had to deal with their attitude. God had them going in circles because they had to change their perspective. You ever felt like you were in circles in your life? You just keep going through the same mistake and the same problem over it. It's because you didn't learn your lesson. Somewhere in there you got to change your perspective, the way you're seeing it, the way you're dealing with it, and say, God, I don't want to go around this mountain anymore. I'm done. And you come to the Jordan River, and now what do I do with it? This was their final separation. This was it. This was all that kept them from their past to their future, was this river. It was the final separation from Egypt. The Hebrews were finally going to have their own land, their past behind them and their future in front of them. This monument they made was to remind them of where they came from and that God was calling them to new things. Once they crossed the River Jordan, they were not to go backwards. And that monument in the river was to remind them not to cross it again. See, they put the monument on the one side, reminding them of where they'd come from. But the monument in the river was saying, don't you dare come back here.
Preach it, girl.
Yeah.
How many people come to Christ and walk back to their past because they crossed back over that monument they placed in the river?
That's right.
And they never get whole because they go back to their past. Because they still live in the victim mentality and they never get free and become the victor God called them to be. So sad. Jesus paid the price for it, but we have a choice whether or not we walk in it. He paid the same price for all of us. Well, you just had it easier. You grew up in a pastor's home. Yeah, I did. Do you know what I went through? Do you know what it's like to have everybody judge you day in and day out because you have to be perfect all the time? It's not easy. And they look at you like, but you always had a great mom and dad. I did. I had wonderful parents. But you think that we didn't go through things? Did you think that it was always perfect? That's what gets me. People have this vision of perfection. You have no idea what people endure, what they go through. It blows my mind. You know why I didn't choose to do drugs? And I didn't choose to do those things? It's not that those opportunities weren't given to me. I was raised in a house with a whole bunch of foster kids in the house. There was opportunity to do stupid things all the time. Do you know why I didn't choose it? Because I saw the consequences those kids paid. And you know what? I kind of looked at them like, I have a brain. I'm going to behave differently. Because I just saw what you had to go through because you snorted cocaine. I'm not doing that. That's dumb. I learned from their mistakes. And I didn't do it. Did I have the opportunity in front of me? Oh, yeah. I mean, I had kids handing me stuff too. Well, why don't you come do this with us? And why don't you hang out and do this with us? And I'm like, because I've seen what happens when you do this. That's dumb. Do you know where you end up? I don't want to hang out there. Maybe you were the kind of kid that chose that kind of path. You know what? You don't have to be. You can change. You can make a change for something different. You know, I was sitting in the store that I used to work in down in Midland, doing children's clothing. And I was ironing and stuff, and this lady came in and she was shopping and buying her kids some clothes at a secondhand store. But this was a fancy place, and I had to like iron every little ruffle on the girls' dresses. So I'm ironing and I'm going away at it, and she comes in, and I had the Christian radio on, and she said, "Are you a believer?" And I said, "Yeah." And she began to tell me her testimony, and how God had set her free from alcohol and drugs, just all sorts of different things. And she said, "What's your testimony?" I said, "You know what? I was raised in a Christian home. I didn't go through those things because I didn't choose them. Not that I didn't have an opportunity. I just didn't choose them. I saw the consequences and I avoided them with all I was worth." I said, "But God has saved me a lot." And I really didn't share my testimony because at the time I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't talking about some of the things I endured in school and that stuff. I just couldn't talk about it yet. It wasn't completely whole. But I just kind of, that's my testimony. She looked at me, she said, "That's awesome." I've never heard someone talk to me like she did. She looked at me and she said, "My testimony is what God brought me from. Your testimony is what He kept you from."
Amen. Amen.
And I thought, oh, I never heard it that way. Because